Welcome to our lecture on animal behavior. Today, we're going to explore a topic that often shocks people when they first hear about it: infanticide. While it may seem incredibly cruel to our human sensibilities, in the wild, it is a highly calculated strategy for survival and genetic dominance. We will build our understanding of this behavior from the ground up, looking at the biology, the math, and the evolutionary logic behind it. To begin, let us define exactly what we mean by infanticide in the context of animal behavior. It is the intentional killing of dependent young by an adult of the exact same species. Think about human history for a moment, specifically royal successions in ancient empires. When a new king conquered a rival kingdom, he would often eliminate the previous king's heirs to ensure all resources went to his own bloodline. In the wild, we see a very similar strategy play out. When a new male takes over a group, such as a pride of African lions or a troop of Hanuman langurs, he will often kill the nursing babies of his defeated rival. Now that we understand what infanticide is, let us look at how it works biologically. Why would a new male waste energy killing infants? The answer lies in a biological condition known as lactational amenorrhea. When a female is nursing her young, her reproductive cycle is naturally suppressed. She simply cannot mate and produce new offspring while she is feeding the previous male's babies. By killing these unrelated infants, the new male abruptly ends the female's lactation. This forces their bodies to return to sexual receptivity much faster. For a male who has just fought hard to win a group of females, this is a crucial reproductive strategy driven by sexual selection. This brutal behavior actually caused a massive turning point in the history of evolutionary biology. For a very long time, scientists mistakenly believed that animals behaved for the good of the species. Under that old logic, killing babies would be completely counterproductive to the survival of the species as a whole. However, infanticide proved that evolution does not care about the whole species. It operates strictly at the level of the individual and their genes. This perfectly illustrates the concept of individual fitness. An animal's primary biological goal is simply to maximize its own genetic contribution to the next generation, regardless of the cost to others. Now that we understand the biological motivation, let us look at the mathematics behind this strategy. This formula calculates the net evolutionary benefit of committing infanticide. The variable g represents the net genetic gain. For this behavior to evolve, g must be greater than 0. Delta t represents the time saved, usually measured in months, because the female stops nursing and becomes fertile again. The variable k is the male's reproductive rate, meaning how many of his own offspring will survive per month. Finally, c represents the cost, such as the physical risk of being attacked by a mother defending her cub. If the time saved increases, the genetic gain increases. But if the cost increases, the gain decreases, and the male might avoid the behavior entirely. Before we move on, let us see this formula in action with a concrete example of a lion pride takeover. Imagine a new male lion wins a pride. His average tenure as leader is strictly limited to 24 months before another male overthrows him. If he does not commit infanticide, he must wait 12 months for the current cubs to be weaned. If he does commit infanticide, his wait time drops to 0. We are asked to find the time saved. By subtracting 0 from 12, we find that eliminating the existing cubs saves him exactly 12 months. This is a massive advantage, as it prevents half of his short tenure from being completely wasted. Now that we have the time saved, let us calculate the final evolutionary payoff for our lion. We are given his reproductive rate of half a cub per month and a cost of 1 cub due to energy loss and minor injuries from fighting the mothers. We plug these values into our genetic gain formula. We multiply the 12-month saved by 0.5, giving a gross benefit of 6 potential new cubs. We then subtract the cost of 1 cub to balance the biological checkbook. The final answer is a net genetic gain of exactly 5. Physically, this means the male gains 5 more of his own surviving offspring than he would have if he had just waited patiently. So we have proven that the genetic gain for the lion is positive 5. This brings us to an important evolutionary conclusion. Because this final number is positive and significantly high, evolutionary pressure will strongly favor infanticidal behavior in this environment. The male who kills the cubs gains a massive reproductive advantage over any hypothetical male who chooses to wait patiently. In the wild, nature rewards those who pass on the most genes. Over thousands of generations, the genes of the impatient infanticidal males will completely dominate the lion population, making this brutal act a standard species behavior. Now, let us apply this same logic to a completely different scenario. A species of monkey where females form highly aggressive defensive coalitions. Here, the time saved by stopping lactation is only 6 months. The male's reproductive rate is lower at 0.2 offspring per month. Crucially, because the mothers fight back so fiercely together, the risk of severe injury creates a massive fitness cost of 2 offspring. We plug these new values into our formula. Multiplying 6 by 0.2 gives a gross benefit of just 1.2. Subtracting the high cost of 2 leaves us with a final answer of negative 0.8. Physically, this means the male actually loses evolutionary fitness by attacking. This negative result from our monkey example teaches us a vital lesson about animal behavior. Because the net genetic gain is negative 0.8, committing infanticide in this specific scenario actually harms the male's overall evolutionary fitness. The severe cost of fighting the unified mothers completely outweighs the modest time saved by stopping lactation. Therefore, natural selection will actively discourage infanticide in this monkey population. Males who try it will leave behind fewer offspring than those who do not. Over time, males in this species will likely evolve to leave the infants alone, proving that social structure heavily impacts evolutionary math. Now that we have calculated the math, let us visualize this advantage. On screen, you are looking at a timeline comparing the two strategies. The horizontal axis represents time in months, from 0 to 24. The top timeline shows what happens without infanticide. A long blue block of female lactation lasts for 12 months, delaying the green block, which represents when the new male's offspring are finally born. The bottom timeline shows the infanticide strategy. The red X marks the elimination of the unrelated infants, abruptly ending the lactation period. Notice the black arrow pointing left. This shows how the entire green reproductive window is shifted earlier. By forcing the females back into a fertile state, the male maximizes his own limited window to pass on his genes. Before we summarize, let us consider how this knowledge is applied in the real world today. Understanding the evolutionary math behind infanticide is absolutely crucial for modern wildlife conservationists and zoo managers. When managing captive breeding programs for endangered species, humans must step in to prevent these brutal natural instincts from taking over. If a zoo manager simply introduces a new adult male into a captive group of females with nursing babies, The result could be the tragic loss of highly endangered infants. By understanding that this behavior is a hardwired evolutionary strategy rather than a behavioral anomaly, conservationists can carefully time introductions and manage animal populations safely. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us summarize the key takeaways. First, we learned that infanticide is not an act of random cruelty, but a highly calculated reproductive strategy. Second, by eliminating unrelated young, a new male ends lactational amenorrhea, forcing females back into a fertile state much faster. Third, this behavior perfectly illustrates that natural selection is driven by the reproductive success of the individual, completely debunking the old idea that animals act for the harmony of the group. Finally, as our math showed, this behavior only evolves when the time saved provides a genetic benefit that outweighs the physical risks of fighting defending mothers. You now understand the intense, calculated equations that shape animal societies.